Right guys, welcome to episode number 5 of the 3-pedal live rig. Now this episode is all about the small, perfectly formed rig that you might take away with you on vacations if you're like driving somewhere in your own country, or you're going to visit relatives for the weekend, or you're going to a mate's house on a Sunday to have a jam, or you're going to rehearsals, or you're playing really small gigs at the pub. Something like that. So in this series, I put together 3 to 5 pedals, 1 or 2 amps, it was 2 amps last time, and 1 or 2 guitars. In this episode today, we've got a selection of pedals, we've got 1 amp, and we've got 1 guitar. Let me quickly tell you what the sort of exact purpose for this rig is. I'm going away for a week to stay at my mum's. My wife and I and the kids are going. There's going to be some other family members coming around. It's going to be a few evenings where we're going to probably have a few glasses of wine, and I'm going to play a little bit of background music for everyone. Since the pandemic started, we haven't had a chance to do anything like this. I'm really looking forward to it. So the key to this is to create a rig that's nice to hear in a quiet environment. Up till now, I've played my rigs at pretty high volumes for a medium-sized gig. So we're talking 97 to 103 decibels, which is really quite loud. Last time I went up to 115 decibels, which really you'd have to be playing outside, I think. And I actually hurt my ears a little bit for about a week. So it's taught me a lesson not to play so loud in such a small room. So in order to do this, I've chosen my smallest amp. This is my Fender Princeton Reverb. This is the hand-wired reissue version. And what I love about this amp is for the low volume stuff, it's enough. It has a beautiful warm tone. It's not the best amp for edge of breakup sounds, so we're going to keep the volume at about number 4. The amp is probably at its most sparkly and wonderful at 6 or 7, but that's just too loud for what I want for this purpose. And what's great is it's going to save us a reverb pedal and a tremolo pedal because it has both built in. Incredible reverb for such a small amp, and really quite good tremolo. Sometimes the sort of background noise of the amp wavers more with the tremolo than the actual notes you're playing. But, it's a small speaker and it's a small amp, so it's not got the ability to really project it all that much. Now, the guitar I'm going to use today is a P90 bass guitar, and actually where I'm going to stay, the guitar maker John Case lives around there, so I'm going to go and visit him. I'm actually getting the switch on my new Strat that he made for me swapped around so that the neck selector is actually normally where the bridge is, because I find myself pushing my hand down on it too often, so I play in the neck mostly, so we're going to swap that round. So I thought I'm going to spend a week with this gold top P90 guitar that I bought from him, which I love this guitar. For some reason though, I haven't played it a lot yet because it doesn't always fit with the videos, the P90s, So today this is all about P90s, this guitar, and it's actually a little tip of mine. If you've got several guitars, every so often, spend a good 2-3 weeks just only playing the one type of guitar, the one specific guitar. You'll get to know it better. You'll make a bond with it. So this week, it's going to be this P90. And I've got to say, the last 5 days, I've only played this guitar and I've fallen in love with it massively, learned how to use it a bit better and enjoy it. So let's get onto the pedal board. Now, for the first time, we're going to actually have the correct sort of pedal board. So I've gone and got the Pedaltrain Nano Plus, which is for $39.99, a decent little board. There's got a cavity on the back so I can put the power supply in there. I'm going to be using my Tone City power supply. It has about 8 or 9 outputs. Most of them are 9 volt, 200 milliamps, and then you've got a couple of 9 to 18 volts and some 500 milliamps, so you can cover quite a lot of ground with that. So in a second, I'm going to put the Velcro on here and start taking you through one by one which pedals I'm going to use and why. Just to point out, if you're looking for a small pedal board, maybe, for this particular situation like myself, this one is really good for £40. You get a nice case. It's actually really sturdy with a good quality zip on it. It doesn't feel like it's just going to break. And that comes with a shoulder strap, which, could be useful, although it's not going to be very heavy. And then surprisingly for the money, although, you really need it, you get both types of the tape, the soft one, which I'm going to put down on the board. So you should put the soft one down on the board. This is something I learned from Dan, that pedal show. Put the soft one down, put the hard one onto the actual pedal, and then some cable ties if we need it to sort those cables out and make it a bit tidier. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so before we get to the first pedal, let's just have a little listen to the Princeton reverb by itself. Let's see what we think. What always surprises me with the Princeton is it sounds good in the room. It's not big, obviously, and when you're used to playing sort of 2x12 cabinets or bigger combo amps, it normally takes me an hour or so of playing it before my ears sort of retune to the fact that it's a much smaller sound. But when you record it, it's one of the most beautiful, clean sounding amps I've ever heard. There's a real warmth and a depth to it, which obviously the mics pick up, and it's not huge in the room. So it makes it great as a recording amp, and it makes it great as a small live amp because you're not going to blow people away. In order to break up with this amp, you have to go up to about 7 or 8, and that would be quite loud, but this is really manageable at this sort of level. So I really enjoyed that. It's a lovely warm tone with the P90s. Let's kick in the first pedal. So this is the Unit 67 by Drybell. It's a really clever little pedal. You know, it's one of these sort of utility pedals that's not super sexy, but it's a great boost compressor EQ pedal. One of the things I like about it has a little lightning symbol where the unity would be for an amp. So you can decide whether you're going to reduce or increase the boost. It's got a great little EQ section with a range, with a low and a high, and you can also choose whether you've got low or high input. It can really just make your sound a bit more rolled off at the top, a bit compressed, make it feel like you've got more volume going on, or cut off the sharp edges as well, which is obviously what happens when you would, play your amp at a higher volume. So in that sense, for such a low volume rig, and by the way, we're talking at this point when it's clean, sort of early to mid 80s decibels, which I know that could still be above bedroom volumes for some people, but if you're going to try and get good tone to play live, I think you have to start at that sort of point, 80 to 85. So for a lot of the time I'll be using the Drybell actually to reduce volume levels when the other pedals kick in, and this volume knob is really good for that. There's a load of uses for this. It's based on 1176 compressors, really high grade studio stuff. And it's one of those that you don't need to talk about too much. It's just good at what it does. So let's see what the next pedal is. some of you who are familiar to this channel might be surprised that I have not put a fuzz pedal. I did try it out. I tried to use my Austin Pride, my favorite fuzz pedal, and I tried to use the vintage fuzz by King Tone and the mini fuzz. And I was going to show you all of these things, but you know, the video would have got so long. Ultimately, I find fuzz pedals work best at higher volume, and also they can increase your volume to a point that it's a bit untenable. I think if I was using humbuckers, it could probably work with the Austin Pride, but with these P90s, the way the P90s compress is different from a humbucker, of course, and it's much fuller than a Strat single coil. So I was just finding for a lower volume thing, I wasn't getting what I wanted out of the fuzz. So instead, to get the beautiful compressed sound, I've gone for the Shanks. So that's a Nobles type pedal. What's really good about this pedal and why it's so versatile and great to be on anyone's board is it works really well as a low gain, high volume sound, boosting everything, transparent, sounds beautiful. But unlike quite a few drive pedals that I've tried, I actually enjoy its gain tones quite a lot. So I can push the gain up on this, doesn't have to be at high volume, and you get this really, for me, wonderful vintage sounding thing going on. With these vintage P90s, this Shanks, at a low volume, it's really friendly on the ears, and I think, you know, people you're playing to are going to be happy to hear a bit of sort of, you know, tube distortion sound, but at a lower volume that sounds really good. It enables you to play in certain ways. It gives you that sort of flexibility on the fretboard when you have the nice hairy tones to sort of cover a few of your errors and things like that. And I just love the sound of this Shanks. So really enjoy that. Now let's hear the Shanks and the Unit 67 together and see what that does. Now the two pedals work really good together. I haven't shown everything on screen that I actually played around with, so I can just tell you about it. But I used the Unit 67 at Unity to play with the Shanks at this point, which works really, really well. I tried it at a higher boost level, and it just worked in a really high quality way to just increase the level without breaking up too much more. But the reason I would use the 67 and the Shanks together with such a small sort of rig is the Unit 67 has like a sustain control, and you can actually use it to massively increase your sustain, which when you're playing with a small amp, you know, that won't necessarily fill the room as much and create as much sound and therefore like sustain by itself, something like this is really good to just give an overall bit of extra. You know, I've been listening back and forth between just the Shanks and the Shanks with the Unit 67, and there's a slight difference. It just creates a bit more coverage. You know what I mean by that is the notes, there's beautiful like little harmonics and things that come through a little bit more with the Unit 67, but it's in the playing of it. When you turn it on, you feel it under the fingers, and that allows you to play in a certain way. So together, really, really good. And we can actually just hear a little bit more of that now that I've said it. You might sort of hear a little bit how the notes seem to just carry over a little bit more with that extra sustain. Next we've got a two-sided overdrive pedal. I originally did this earlier with using the Protein pedal, which has my favourite Bluesbreaker type sound from its blue side. It also has a really good Nashville overdrive sound with the green side. But in the end I decided it was more flexible to use the Shanks as the Noble's side, and therefore I needed a different pedal with a Bluesbreaker in. I love a Bluesbreaker, so I've gone for one of the most versatile pedal options that I've come across recently, and its only negative side is it's pretty big. It's slightly bigger than two pedals together, and I wish they could make this a bit smaller, but the Horsebreaker by Ceriatone has the Bluesbreaker, and then next to it, it has a Klon Centaur clone. So really two of the most famous and popular sounds in one pedal. I've done a whole video, 2 videos about this pedal, and I'm actually giving this one away when I hit 3,500 subs. So if you want to win this anywhere in the world, you've got to subscribe to the channel publicly and comment on a video, and then you'll be in the draw and I'll give it away. So first of all, let's hear the breaker side, and then I'll discuss why I'm stacking overdrives here. I think that Bluesbreaker has such a great sound to it. The lower mids are beautiful. When you dig in, you really get this sense of fullness and a real tube warmth to it coming from the breaker. So just in itself, I enjoy that as much as I enjoy the Shanks and its Nashville sound. Why would I have both of them, and why will I have another overdrive in such a small board? Well, I'm not a huge modulation guy, so you're not going to see lots of that. What I like are different types of overdrives, even if they're only slightly different, even if your audience won't necessarily hear the difference. I mean, one reason to do it is I can set the 3 of them as completely different things when I need to. So I can have one as a boost, one as a crunch, and one as a full-on bigger edge of breakup, past edge of breakup sort of sound. So in that sense, the Shanks compresses really, really well. I've taken all the bass out of it using the little screw on the back, so it's got quite a vintage sound to it, quite a lot of high mids, a lot of treble, and it just compresses so nicely that it's really good in a low volume environment. The Bluesbreaker has a little bit more meat to it, a little bit more fullness. What happens when you increase the Shanks' bass, same with the ODR one itself, is you get a boom and a bit of, not flubbiness, that's not right, but a thud in the bass, which is why you have the option to take out the bass. And so I have. In a small room, that would just be too much. But the Bluesbreaker, it's not so much lower, thuddy, boomy bottom end. It's lower mids that still are really musical and don't sort of thud into your ear in the same way. So it has a completely different thing. Now I could whack up the volume on this pedal a bit more and use it a bit more as a boost. I haven't in this case, but I really enjoyed it. Let's hear what the Unit 67 and the breaker together sound like. So that really just accentuates the tone of the breaker itself. With the Shanks, you got more of the upper mids, and with this, especially when in the neck pickup, you get more of the lower mids sort of mixed together with the upper mids. It's subtle. I'll be very open about that. Some people have asked me before why I always like to put a few overdrives. I mean, I think it's not that uncommon for people to use various different overdrives. It's more of a player thing than it is an audience thing. I could do all of this with either the Shanks or the breaker or the Horse or all 3. It's all about how it makes you feel, and sometimes when you're sitting there, the inspiration takes hold and you just go for it. So for me, stacking overdrives or using different overdrives, it's a really good way to get flexibility, variation in your playing with slight nuances that you can use to your advantage here and there that honestly your audience aren't going to know. I mean, if you played any half decent cheap guitar, you know, and a half decent amp and a few decent pedals, you know, we're obviously cork sniffing, aren't we? But we love it, so why not? Right, let's get on to mixing the 67, the Shanks, and the Breaker, and hear how it stacks and what that gives us. Stacking these three together actually gave me goosebumps. It's one of the most awesome crunch tones I've ever managed to get myself. The Shanks and the Breaker together just sound great. The Unit 67 just lifts it. You can use the EQ on there to give yourself what you want, as much sustain and everything. I've not changed the Unit 67 settings throughout this whole video just to keep it simple, but you really can get a lot of different things from it. But even just listening back to it just now, I think it sounds absolutely fantastic. For crunchy rhythm sounds, it's just awesome. And if you're going to be playing solo to your mates or to your family or whatever, and you want to really get in the zone, this is the sort of sound. I think, you know, it's really nicely compressed. It's not going to hurt anyone's ears. Doesn't have to be too loud. That's the whole theme of this video. And these pedals stack so well together. Okay, next we have got the Horse. So let's hear what this Cloncentor sounds like briefly. Well, you know, there's a reason the Cloncentor is so popular and so flippin' expensive, and this is such a good Cloncentor clone. You'll have heard there that it actually clipped the mics a little bit, and that's because it's set up to be much less compressed. I mean, overall, the Cloncentor type pedals don't compress in the same way. They're huge sounding pedals. So even as you increase the gain, as you increase the volume, you're going to not compress as much as you do with the Shanks. or the breaker. So it clipped the mics a little bit there, and it's a bit more present, a bit more attacking, but the dynamics are crazy. You can have this pedal on all the time if you're careful. It gives you really rich, clean sounds. You might have heard in that a little bit more bottom end. It's definitely brought out the bottom end of the amp, so I might have tweaked that down a little bit with this pedal. But yeah, such a beautiful sound. I think that's why it's become so popular. So I'm really, really you know, always keen to fit a Klon clone on the board if I can, and in you know, conjunction with this breaker, it's just the perfect pedal, really. Okay, so Unit 67 and the Horse. Let's hear what that does. When I'm making these videos in this series, I always like to think to myself, what's the best sound I've come up with in this video? And it might have been the Shanks, the breaker, and the Unit 67 for those crunch tones, or it might have been this Unit 67 and the Horse, the Centaur, for the clean sounds. Just dripping, absolutely dripping with beautiful tones. This is probably the sound I'll use the most when I'm away to play to people. I think it gives you the most warmth, the most dynamics when you're playing clean. It's really full sound, but it's not got too much of anything. It's just awesome. So let's start to hear a few more different combos. We've got to add in the breaker with the Horse and the 67 and the Shanks and everything. I'll butt in where I feel the need. Okay, so now I've added in the last pedal, which is the Mad Professor Dual Blue Delay. It will say on the screen whether it's the short or the long, and you've seen this pedal in several videos recently. It's just, for me, a really fantastic delay that's not too complicated to use if you don't want it to be. It does have lots of hidden functions that I don't really use that much, and you can choose to flick between short delays and long delays, which can just be really great in the middle of a song, of course. So here you're going to see it short or long. Alright guys, so I'm going to wrap this up here now before the last 5 minutes or so of various clips. There's nothing much more for me to say really about this over that last 5 minutes, so if you're interested in these pedals and how they work together, please go ahead and watch that. But what I would say is this: it can be really frustrating to stack pedals together. It's taken me a long time to just have a sort of an instinct about how it might work together. Now, a lot of you will know a lot more than I do, and hopefully, you know, you can leave down in the comments other great combinations I could try out. I do want to try and get fuzzes to work on these sort of quieter boards, so I'm going to try that again. Maybe try and find a fuzz that's particularly good at that. For a board like this, I think a compressor of some sort is really useful. I couldn't use the King Tone Rise because it's got too much personality. Which is not what I wanted for this. I wanted something that would compress and lift and sustain. I could have used the Cali 76. I find it a little bit noisy compared to this Unit 67, so that's why I use this one. The Shanks, the Breaker, and the Horse all stack really well together. You're not getting a massive amount of variety, if we're being honest. But what is another thing to say is that with these three really massive, important flavors of overdrive, you should really be able to use any guitar with this little board and it will work, because, you know, the Blues Breaker works with any type of pedal. And I find personally that the Shanks works really better with humbuckers, really well with P90s, very well with Telecasters, and for me less so with Strats. And the Klon Centaur, it depends how you want to use it. You can use it as a simple boost and you're not actually even engaging the full the expensive bit of the pedal. If you do that, you need the gain to be whacked up quite high in order to do that, and that works really well with a lot of different guitars and different amps as well. The Klon Centaur, it's just got a bit of magic to it. And this particular delay, and any delay that you love that's simple for these small boards, you've got to see if that delay changes the tone a lot. The Strymon Volante, for example, replicates sort of mechanical wear on a tape, which is not what I always want. You can sort of minimize that function in the pedal if you want, but it's too big and too complicated for me to use on a small board. So something like this delay is just fantastic. And it took me, I tried out about 15 different pedals on this board before this video. So if you're finding yourself getting frustrated with your pedals, take a little break, think things through again, just give it another go, is all I'd like to say. And in terms of finding pedals that work well at low volume, you need a gain pedal that you like the gain sound of, as opposed to using it fully as a transparent boost with a high volume. I mean, that's obvious, right? I'm sure you're all, telling me to go away now. It's been a long video. So I'm going to be away for the next couple of weeks, so you probably won't see another video from me for about 3 weeks by the time I've got back and made another one. I've got half a day tomorrow. I might manage to make a short review of a pedal if I get a chance, but if I don't, have a nice few weeks, and give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. See you next time. Cheers.